DJ Psykhomantus from the West Midland Turntablist crew called A Few Good Men. I'm also the founder of VisionBombing, and I'm also a recording artist for First Stream Music. Music was always around the house, at my parents' house. It was mostly reggae and soca. As for my grandparents, it would be gospel music. My uncle and aunties on both sides of the families listened to various different genres. One side was heavily on the reggae side. That was more on my father's side. And my mother's side, they were younger. They were more into, they got into house, Motown. So, Michael Jackson, the Jacksons were a big thing back then. But music was always around. I was always surrounded by music, but like I said, at my parents' house, there was a lot of reggae. There was a lot of soca music. So I always had an ear for music everywhere I went. By the mid-80s, a school friend of mine introduced me to Morgan Khan's Street Sound, which was the electro cassette tapes. Yeah, I just remembered listening to that thinking, what is this? This is this new sound, electro. Didn't even call it hip hop back then, I just called it electro. I was heavily driven by it. By then my mother brought me a boombox, so I was just collecting a lot of cassettes. And anything to do with rap music back then, I was on it. So while enjoying this new invasion called hip hop in the mid-80s, it introduced me to the other elements, which was breaking, graffiti. Obviously the music had the rapping, and obviously seeing what the DJs was doing. So back then you did all the elements. So I would say tagging was the first thing I did. My tag name was Dare, D-A-R-E. When I did started to try and rap, I didn't even try, I did it. I started rapping. And I did the dancing. Now, I weren't really into the breaking as much, but it was more of the top rock and stuff. So towards the late 80s, I got asked to join this group called Solid State. Now, Solid State was two guys. It was a duo. It was a guy named Wayne Rex. Back then, he was solid MC. And then there was my friend, may he rest in peace, Steve Antonio. And he was State, MC State or State MC, one of the two. That was the name of the group, Solid State. So when I joined, my MC name or rapper's name was Sinister G. And yeah, we was like a rapping, singing, and dancing group, the trio. Ray Rex was heavily into, he was more into his new jack swing. Steve Antonio was into his soul, and obviously I was into my hip hop. So by then, when we were performing at a venue in Leicester called Spectrum. Spectrum has had many artists that started off their career, and they're still doing their thing up to this day. And at Spectrum, while we was doing, we did a track called Leicester Massive. That was like a big anthem for us back then, because that song mentioned every local artist at that time. And I think we were pretty ahead of our time, because we were teenagers and we talked about people who had the same interest in us, whether it was hip hop, whether it was ragga, whether it was soul, whether it was soca. We also mentioned the people before us who was in the game, top professional DJs and soundmen. So in this song, we mentioned everyone. That was Leicester's anthem. I can't think of anyone in Leicester that's done an anthem like we did back then, and this is 1989, you know. So that was like a contribution to where I am now. Also at Spectrum, Spectrum was like a Leicester's community centre. So on a Thursday, there was like an open deck, before we called it an open deck night. And I remember really heavily wanting to get into my DJing. I was more into DJing than anything else. Because in hip hop, you did everything and you stuck with what you thought you was best at. And for me, out of the 4 elements, it was definitely DJing. And I remember being nervous because Spectrum, picture this, Spectrum is like New York's Apollo. The audience is not going to be nice to you if you are rubbish. And I remember having my records, confident like I really want to get on the turntables and play some rap tracks. And I was really a big Native Tongues, De La Soul fan, and I still am up to this day. But I remember back then, they considered Della was a bit too nerdy. They wanted more harder stuff. So I remember the first record that I played, and it was the new, at that time it was a new 12-inch by Main Source. Main Source had, what was it called? It was called Just Hanging Out, the 12-inch Just Hanging Out. But on the B side, it had Live at the Barbecue featuring Nas. And that was the first record I played. I just remember the audience looked at me and was like, tune, and all that stuff. And that was it. And my DJ name was Buster Scratch back then. That was my name. So from there to Sinister G to Buster Scratch. And fast forward into 97, I moved to Birmingham. Now I was more or less in Birmingham just to work in the bar industry and stuff. And one place in Birmingham, there was a venue called Circo Bar. And Circo Bar had a DMC Heats. Now, going back into the late 80s, early 90s, I was a big fan of the DMC competitions. And lucky enough, I did at a younger age. I went with another DJ who went and competed in Birmingham. Fast forward into 97. There's this DMC Heat. My mind was blown, and I thought, no, I really want to get into this. And that's when I was resurrected as Psykhomantus. Psykhomantus is more of like, I wanted to be a turntablist. I wanted to be a battle DJ, and that just changed the whole game. And since then, that was it. Psykhomantus was born. I became what I wanted to become. So, Birmingham definitely is really the start of who I am now. A house DJ named OJ, who used to work at this clothing store called Pilot in Leicester. Now I remember going into Pilot, and OJ says, yo, there's a dude who's looking for a hip hop DJ for his theatre show. This dude happened to know my uncle. Now my uncle Stuart was into the art. He was in the arts and everything. And I was always interested in the arts from the get-go. And I always wanted to be part of the arts, but from a hip hop DJ perspective. So Kwesi Johnson was the answer. So when I found out who he was, and then I realized he knew my uncle and another member of my family named Joe Thomas. He's obviously a dancer and has worked in the arts in the past years. So Quasi was saying, yeah, he needs a hip hop DJ, and I'll be doing music live on stage with the dancers. And he said there might also be a little bit of acting. So the first show I went in as a DJ, a musical director, and a little bit of acting. And I've always wanted to kind of do something like this because I was very influenced by Kid Capri, of how he did the music for the comedians for Def Comedy Jam. And I always wanted to be something different. Being a DJ back then was like, you know, you play at your community centers, you get your name on flyers, and then you support acts and get on festivals. I felt there was more to that, and this was the key. So that's how I got into theatre. So A Hip Hop Story was the first show that I did, and that was back in 2003. And then again in 2006, which was a bigger tour. And then that was with Quasi Johnson's company called Company Malachi. And then that went on, in that same year, 2006, Sadler's Wells, Sadler's Wells has the project Breaking Convention, and Breaking Convention had Open Art Surgery, which is presented by John D. And I've been their main DJ for the Open Art Surgery from 2006 to 2017. In between that, I've been in and out on small projects with Apples and Snakes. Melanie Abraham has a project called Tilt Lymans. I've worked with her for quite a while. Then Birmingham Hippodrome has had their B-side hip hop festival, and the Apples and Snakes was part of that as well. And Talawa Theatre had a project called Run It Back. So they were like big theatre projects. And again, I'm more or less, the DJ that did it live on stage, whether it was, you know, like I said, there's a little bit of acting in some of them, but definitely a technician and a music director for theatre. So 2003 was the start of that. After the breakup of A Few Good Men, we had a VJ night, a video mix night called Yo Rap's Remembrance, which was held at Hare and Hounds in Birmingham. Now, I remembered that show was dedicated. Yo Rap's Remembrance was obviously a dedication to Yo MTV Raps. So it was heavily more late 80s, definitely 90s rap music videos played to an audience in Hare and Hounds. And I remembered I was getting a little bit frustrated at the fact like we're just playing old stuff, we're just doing these tribute nights. I wanted to play newer stuff. You know, why isn't the new stuff being highlighted the same way that we highlighted the 90s and the late 80s? So I remember talking to Madflow about this project that I wanted to do, and I spoke to Mr. Dex, London DJ, who was on HFM, and I said, I had this idea, I want to do this kind of like a web series, so it's like a cross between Yo MTV Raps meets Ruckus Records Sound Bombing, because Sound Bombing was like a dope mixtape. The first one was mixed by DJ Evil D from Black Moon, and the second Sound Bombing mixtape was done by two DJs by the Beat Junkies. If I'm correct, it was Melody and Rhythmatic, if I'm correct. There was a third one by Cypher Sounds, but it was more or less the second Sound Bombing that I was thinking of, like, if we did like a music web series like your MTV Raps, but it was mixed and blended in like how J-Rock, it was J-Rock, and Rhythmatic did Soundbombing too. I'm saying, yeah, if it was mixed like how J-Rock and Rhythmatic did it, it would be like, yo, that would be dope. There was also a bit of a influence by Normski's Dance Energy as well. So I wanted Flo to be the host of that show, and I'll mix in the videos. Me and Mr. Dex would mix in the videos. And that was it. That was the whole idea of forming VisionBombing, to play new rap music videos. And the rule was to it was 16 tracks in each episode. It was an hour-long show, 16 tracks. So there'd be a lot of, boom bap, hip hop. But the most important thing is we've got to give the artists from our side of the pond the shine, just as well as the artists over the States. And anything that was dope from a different country, it didn't matter where it was from, as long as it was dope. We didn't want to play anything that was 6 months old. I didn't want to do this track came out 2 years, put it in. It was like, no, it has to be fresh. It has to be new, just like the old days. We're playing something new. This is happening. This should be played. And most importantly was every episode had to have a female artist in there, because I just felt like you're missing the game. I mean, we didn't put any female artists in there. That female artist just had to be as good as the men. If they weren't, the ones who got put on, just like the men. If they weren't any good, if the song wasn't good, it ain't getting put on the show. And that was it. That was the rule. That was VisionBombing. So that started in 2013. That would be turning the VisionBombing web series into a game show. That's definitely one of the highest moments. There's a lot. Being in theatre is one. Competing in the DMCs, the battle for supremacy in 2006. That was my favorite time, because I really felt unstoppable in the DMCs. So became a finalist for that. But the highest moment is definitely turning VisionBombing into a game show and having Ty, the late Ty, may he rest in peace, as the host. I would say be prepared for the unexpected, because that's what the art is all about. That's the only thing I can say to expect from me. Be prepared for the unexpected.